Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Whenever we hear the name Israel in the news lately, our minds immediately jump to those massive external conflicts, right? We think about the ongoing wars involving Hamas, Hezbollah, or all the heavy tensions with Iran. It's a region that is basically defined by external threats right now. But over the last few days, something entirely different and honestly profoundly unsettling has been happening inside the country. We're talking severe riots, huge protests, and just shocking violence erupting. But here's the real paradox. This is not an attack from beyond Israel's borders.
Picture the scenes coming out of the country right now. Major highways are completely blocked off. Vehicles are literally being set on fire in the streets. And we're even seeing targeted, violent attacks on the homes of Supreme Court judges. It really begs the question, who do you think is actually responsible for this? Who is the current enemy causing this unbelievable level of destruction and chaos?
Well, here is the shocking truth. The violence that's completely paralyzing the streets isn't coming from external enemies like Hamas, Hezbollah, or Iran. No, this is an internal clash. This is happening among Israel's very own people. It's literally citizen against citizen and citizen against the state. It's a massive domestic fracture that is upending the nation during one of the most vulnerable times in its history. Okay, let's dive into Section 1, an unexpected internal war in Israel. Moving right along to Section 2, mandatory military conscription and the exemption. So to really wrap our heads around this outrage, we first have to look at Israel's incredibly strict mandatory military rules. For decades, joining the military hasn't just been some career choice. It is a fundamental, absolute obligation of citizenship. It's the core of their national defense. By law, almost every single Jewish man born in Israel is legally required to serve a mandatory 32 months in the military. Just think about what that means for a second. Right out of high school, nearly 3 whole years of a young man's life are dedicated entirely to the armed forces.
And it doesn't stop there. Women are also mandated by law to serve 24 months. The general expectation in Israel is that practically everyone, your sons, daughters, neighbors, friends, they all have to pick up a weapon and contribute to the nation's defense. It's supposed to be this universal sacrifice. Or, well, at least it was supposed to be.
Now, there is a totally fascinating, historic exception to that universal rule. There's a specific community in Israel known as the Ultra-Orthodox or Haredi Jews. This is a highly traditional group, and they largely live completely separate from the modern secular world. They dedicate their lives entirely to studying holy texts and to prayer. And here's the kicker. Since the very formation of the State of Israel over 70 years ago, this specific group has been granted a really unique historical exemption from joining the army. So while the rest of the country is out there putting on a uniform, the Haredi youth have been legally allowed to just stay in their religious schools to study. Which brings us to Section 3. What caused the cancellation of this exemption? For 70 years, this status quo just kind of held together, even though people argued about it all the time. The secular majority served, and the ultra-Orthodox studied. Simple, right? But the reason it's all breaking down right this very second lies in the harsh reality of the current conflicts. The ongoing wars on the Gaza and Lebanon borders have been brutal, resulting in incredibly heavy casualties. Thousands of Israeli soldiers have been killed or wounded, and that immense toll has created a desperate, immediate, and frankly severe shortage of soldiers in the Israeli army. They simply need more manpower, right now. So how is the broader public reacting to this? Well, the secular public, the ones actually out there bearing the brunt of these casualties, they're asking a very painful, very direct question. It's perfectly captured in this sentiment. When we are all joining the army and giving our lives for the country, why should the ultra-Orthodox just get to stay home? You can see why, when ordinary citizens are burying their children, the tolerance for a 70-year-old exemption just completely vanishes. And the escalation into a full-blown national crisis was rapid. It was like a domino effect. First, the grieving, exhausted public demanded that the law be applied equally. Everyone must serve, no exceptions. Second, responding to all this immense pressure and the military's sheer desperation for troops, the Supreme Court made a massive landmark decision. They formally canceled that 70-year exemption, mandating that the Haredi youth actually have to serve now. And third, the government started issuing actual arrest warrants for ultra-Orthodox men who refused to comply and dodged the draft. Now for Section 4, protests and anarchy in the streets. The absolute second those arrest warrants were issued, it was like a match hitting a powder keg. We instantly went from a tense legal debate straight into utter chaos. Now, to truly understand the intensity of these riots, we have to look impartially at the ultra-Orthodox stance.
To them, studying their holy texts is what protects the Jewish people just as much, if not more, than the physical military. Their conviction is absolutely unshakable. It's summed up in their rallying cry, even if we lose our lives. They are literally willing to die, they are willing to go to jail, but they absolutely refuse to abandon their religion and their community to join the secular military. For them, it's an unmovable red line. And the real-world fallout over the last couple of days has been a severe escalation. We're talking thousands of ultra-Orthodox protesters flooding the streets of major cities like Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. They're blocking critical transportation routes, they're clashing violently with police forces, which has led to hundreds of arrests. And perhaps the most shocking part of all of this? The anger was directed right at the judiciary itself, culminating in an incredibly violent attack on the actual home and car of Deputy Chief Justice Noam Solberg. Honestly, the situation has spiraled so far out of control that a former Chief Justice of Israel issued a very grave, chilling warning. They used just one single word to describe the current state of the nation: anarchy. Because think about it, when the very authorities who are responsible for maintaining the law are under physical attack from citizens who refuse to obey it, the whole fabric of society really begins to tear. Finally, Section 5. Law of the land or religious belief, the ultimate dilemma.
So let's zoom out for a second. Israel is fighting this massive, multi-front war that requires immense national unity, yet at the exact same time, it's being severely weakened from the inside by this fundamental battle between state survival and deep-rooted faith. So I want to leave you with this really profound philosophical question to think about. Should the law of the land be entirely equal for everyone, demanding the exact same sacrifice with zero exceptions? Or should deeply held historic religious beliefs be prioritized and protected, even in times of an absolute existential crisis? It's a tough one, right? Let me know where you stand on this complex issue in the comments. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.